But for now, we're going to talk NBA draft with Jonathan Givony, who's an awesome draft analyst for ESPN. He started and is co-owner of DraftExpress.com. He's going to be part of ESPN's coverage of the NBA draft tonight, starting at 7:30 Eastern, as well as the ABC broadcast, which kicks off at 8. He'll also contribute to the round 2 coverage of the draft on Thursday that tips off at 4 p.m. on ESPN. Jonathan, it's Ross Tucker filling in for Dan. I really appreciate the time. I guess I got to start with this, man. Who are these guys? Like the first couple guys that are supposed to get drafted, who are these guys? I don't know anything about them.
Hey, Ross. First of all, thanks for having me. It's going to be an awesome day today, so I hope everybody's as excited as me about this draft. It's so nice we're going to do it twice, today and tomorrow, which is fantastic. But, I mean, this is the landscape of the basketball world. It's not just about the United States anymore. It's an international game. Most of the best players in the world are international, so it shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone that the top 2 picks in the draft are, in all likelihood, going to be international players. Zachary Rizachet, a 6'10" small forward who plays for J.L. Borg, drawing some comparisons to guys like Brandon Miller, Trey Murphy. Outstanding shooter, made 39% of his threes this year, has an elite feel for the game. Outstanding defender on top of that, guards everyone from 1 through 4. He's the favorite to go number 1. He's been the favorite all year. He's been ranked number 1 on our big board all season long. Number 2, another French player, 7'1", Alex Sarr. He has maybe the most unique backstory of any prospect in this draft. He moved when he was 14 years old to Spain to play for Real Madrid, and then he went to Overtime Elite in Atlanta, and he spent this past season in Perth, Australia, with the NBL Next Star program. So, I mean, 2 incredibly gifted 19-year-olds, probably known more for their defense right now than their offense, but are very productive on both ends of the floor. So it's an exciting night for France. We saw number 1 pick Victor Wembanyama last year, and this is just going to be something that we're going to see over and over again. The talent level coming out of France is off the charts right now.
So why is that? What's going on in France? Is this like the Tony Parker effect? What's going on in France that there's this many good players that are better than any Americans?
Well, France is the most ethnically diverse country in Europe. Huge, populations of people with Senegalese, Congolese, Guadeloupe, Ivory Coast descent. It's the same thing that we're seeing on the French soccer team. They're ranked number 2 in the world. I've spent a lot of time in France over the last 20 years, and every time I step into a gym, for, a youth level game, I mean, just the talent, physical talent is incredible. There's so much size and length and athleticism, and the infrastructure has really caught up. The coaching has caught up. And we're really seeing French teams make more of an investment in playing these guys at a younger age. Now, they saw what, Victor Wembanyama leading his team to the finals a year ago, Bilal Koulibaly starting at point guard in the finals after barely playing the first half of the season. So I think, basketball is very popular in France in no small part due to Tony Parker, but also Nick Batum, Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, Boris Diaw. So it's been a great legacy of French players, and it's only going to get stronger and stronger now that they have the number 1 prospect in the world who's playing in the NBA right now, Victor Wembanyama, a future MVP.
We're talking with Jonathan Givony, who does a terrific job, as you can tell, studying these guys for the NBA draft. Those first 2 guys you mentioned, Jonathan, are they like immediate impact guys? Are they developmental guys for 3 to 5 years from now? What do you envision their NBA path being?
I think they're both ready to play right away. They're high-level role players who can step on an NBA court and impact the game defensively, first and foremost. Zachary Rizashay played at an exceptionally high level of basketball this year. His team made the finals of the Euro Cup. They made the semifinals of the French playoffs. He was the leading player for them. They were the best defensive team in both of the leagues that he competed in, and he was their best defender. When the 6'10" guy, when they needed to get a stop, they would put him on a point guard. So that's going to translate to the NBA right away, and his instincts are going to translate too. He's a outstanding passer. He's a great cutter. The game comes very easily for him, and he can shoot the ball at a very high level. So every team in the NBA is looking for that. Alex Sarr, the same thing. He led the Australian NBL, which is a very strong league, in block percentage this season. So he's going to come in ready to impact the game on that end right away. He also made quite a few threes. He's very good pushing the ball off the defensive glass. He's good out of short rolls. He's an excellent pick-and-roll finisher. So, a guy with those kind of physical attributes who already has the ability to impact the game on the defensive end. I mean, any team that drafts him, most likely Washington, is going to slot him in right away and give him the runway to develop into his full potential.
All right, what about some of the guys I have heard of, Jonathan? Guys like Donovan Clingan, Zach Edey, Stephen Castle, Reed Shepherd. When are those guys likely to hear their names called? What do they project to be in the NBA?
Well, it feels like the draft really starts at 3 because Houston is in win-now mode. They acquired this pick in a trade from Brooklyn, and they're on a pathway to making the playoffs here. So the big question that teams have is, are they going to keep this pick, or are they going to trade it for more of a ready-made contributor? If they do trade it, we're expecting that somebody will be moving up to get Donovan Clingan at number 3. Donovan Clingan is the best rim protector in this draft. He had a huge impact on UConn winning the national championship on both ends of the floor. He was an offensive hub for UConn. He's very good operating out of handoffs. He's a very good screener. He's a very good passer out of short rolls. He's an offensive rebounder. He draws fouls. He plays incredibly hard. Donovan Clingan can play in an NBA game tonight. So there's a lot of interest in him, especially among teams like Memphis, who have the 9th pick, for example, Portland at 7, which is considered to be his floor if he slides. Oklahoma City at 12, kind of a sleeper. They really need another big-bodied guy. And, is Clingan that guy? Could it be Zach Edey with the 12th pick? So a lot of permutations that will really change the complexion of how this night goes. So I would pay very close attention to what happens with the number 3 pick. If Houston keeps it, most NBA teams are expecting them to draft Reed Shepherd from Kentucky. He's the best shooter in this draft. He made 52% of his threes this year. No player has done that in college basketball. No first-round pick has done that since 1989, Glenn Rice at Michigan. So just shows you the type of shooter that he is. He also has a great feel for the game. He makes the game easy for teammates. He can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. So it's it's an exciting group. Not the same type of star power that you normally expect to see at the top of the draft, but high-level role players who are ready to make an impact in the NBA from day one.
What did the trade, the Bridges trade last night, from the Nets to the Knicks and 5 first-round picks, what did that do to the draft in your mind, if anything? And what does it mean for the Knicks in the Eastern Conference?
Well, the Knicks have the 24th, 25th, and 38th picks in this draft. And I think they went from possibly being in the market to trade 1 or 2 of those picks to probably keeping all 3 of them and rostering those players and maybe asking those players to play a real role for them. Because you bring Mikal Bridges on at his salary, you re-sign OG Anunoby, all of a sudden you are firmly in the luxury tax and you need to find cheap contributors on a cost-controlled rookie-scale contract who are ready to play rotation minutes from day one. Now, we know Tom Thibodeau, not a huge fan of rookies. He's going to play Josh Hart 48 minutes if it's up to him. But I think that the Knicks saw the way that the playoffs went for them this spring. These guys were out of gas by the time they reached Game 7 of the playoffs against the Indiana Pacers. They need to widen their rotation and find ways to get to the finish line in better shape physically. And so I think that a big man is a strong possibility, either at 24 or 25, whoever the best available center is. Maybe a guy like Khalil Ware, for example, from Indiana. And then I think that they're going to look at older players, 25 and 38, maybe someone like Terrence Shannon, who was one of the best players in college basketball this year and is a very good defender, and he's made 36% of his threes, and he's outstanding in transition. Guys like that, I think, are going to be in vogue, not just for the Knicks, but for all of these playoff teams. Everybody needs to find guys who can play right now because of the way that they changed the luxury tax rules with the second apron. It's never been more important to draft well and to have guys playing for cheap.
Last minute here, Jonathan. If Bronny James' last name was different, if he was Bronny Pabst and Paulie Pabst was his dad, would he get drafted? And where would he get drafted?
It's a tough question to answer because a lot of what makes Bronny James interesting is the fact that he's got incredible genetics. We've seen second-generation players far exceed expectations in the NBA in a way that most people could not imagine. Jalen Brunson is a great example. Steph Curry. The list goes on. And so the reason why Bronny James could be good is because he's been around this game his entire life. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to play with other good players. He brings high-level intensity on every possession defensively. He's unselfish. He's a good three-point shooter. He's explosive. And so somebody's going to possibly draft him tomorrow for what he could become in 3 to 5 years from now. Now, the Lakers are very intrigued with him, and it doesn't hurt that his last name is indeed James, and drafting him gives you a better chance of keeping LeBron in Los Angeles. That's not a given. They're willing to give him a guaranteed contract, a real roster spot, which you don't normally expect to see at that point in the draft. So, that's if it wasn't associated with the Lakers, his whole pathway would have been different. He would have done 20 workouts. He only did 2, and a lot of that is because they want him to play for the Lakers. It's a great situation for him.
Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
There he is, Jonathan Givony. He's going to be part of ESPN's coverage of the NBA draft tonight, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on ABC as well. And then round 2, the Bronny night, is 4 p.m. tomorrow on ESPN.